I have more to tell you regarding the teen girl who was arrested this week for allegedly killing her mom and stepdad in Georgia in February. Her name is Sarah Grace Patrick, and she didn't just post on TikTok mourning the loss of her parents, she did a lot more.
Why would you ask me to cover a case where you are going to get arrested for taking your parents' lives?
It turns out she also reached out to several crime creators on TikTok, encouraging them to look into the case. One of those creators is going to join me to talk about what Sarah Grace Patrick told her and the chilling comments she left on her account that you just have to see. We're on The Case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Before I get to this update involving the Sarah Grace Patrick case in Georgia, which is a huge story that we've been following, I also have a huge announcement to make for those of you who love to watch police body camera video. We know you love the action, but this is even better. Highlights from On Patrol Live are coming to YouTube. The show is live on the Reels channel and Reels Plus app every Friday and Saturday, and follows police officers across the country with over 50 cameras rolling live. And let me tell you, it is wild. We're talking high-speed chases, intense standoffs, and everything in between. So head over to On Patrol Live's YouTube channel to catch it all, and make sure to subscribe. The channel launches Monday, July 14th, and you can subscribe by clicking the link in the description. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. All right, let's get to the story involving Sarah Grace Patrick. I've found 3 TikTok creators who say that Sarah Grace Patrick reached out to them for them to cover the murders of her mom and stepdad. Now, this is the same Sarah Grace Patrick who this week was arrested by Carroll County Sheriff's deputies and is now accused and charged in those murders. She is now 17 years old, and deputies say that she killed her mom and stepdad by shooting them as they lay in their beds in the middle of the night on February 20th. Now, Sarah Grace was also the one who called 911. And not only that, she says that her then 5-year-old sister found her parents, Kristen and James Brock, shot dead. Just think about that. Sarah Grace also claims that it was her little sister who then alerted her, and then she alerted the authorities. But now we know that was allegedly a lie. Sarah Grace posted this on TikTok, saying the loss of her parents hit her when, quote, "I see my 5-year-old sister screaming, crying for her mommy and daddy." I can't say it enough. Sarah Grace is the one who is now charged and accused of being the person who killed that little girl's mom and dad. Sarah has also posted about needing help with her mental health and needing to call a hotline for that and being depressed. So we are working to learn more about her mental health history as that part of the case carries on. But before I get you caught up on the social media part of this story, and that is a huge part of this story, I want you to know about the victims, James and Kristen Brock. And from what we have seen, members of their community love them. Their family loved them. They loved their faith. They were avid churchgoers in Carrollton, Georgia, a small, quiet town where stuff like this rarely happens. James and Kristen, they were a blended family as well. They were parents to that young little girl and the mom and stepdad to Sarah Grace Patrick. In the days, weeks, and months after the murders, Sarah was very vocal on social media, specifically on TikTok. She posted these videos, montages within days of the murders, memorializing her parents. This one says that she sleeps so she can see her mom, Kristen, who she allegedly killed. Other images show her crying with makeup running down her face, asking how someone could take her mom and stepdad away, people who she loved so much. She was a regular commenter also on posts and stories related to the murders that she allegedly committed, accepting plenty of thoughts and prayers. You can see on this one, she replies less than a month after she allegedly killed her parents with, quote, "I love you, thank you." On top of that, Sarah Grace spoke at her parents' funeral at their church. This is per WSB TV.
Although there's nothing we can do to bring them back, we still have control over how we treat people.
But we have found it goes deeper than that. She appears to have taken the initiative to reach out to TikTokers who cover true crime, encouraging them to research, report, and talk about the murders that she is now accused of committing, as if she was someone looking for justice for her parents.
Y'all, this is Sarah Grace, and she messaged me back on June 3rd and just said, search up Brock case.
This is the account called Allegedly Reportedly. It has more than 130,000 followers. Not only did Sarah Grace reach out to this account, she left some chilling comments. Look at this.
And she commented, thank you for spreading awareness. She also replied to this person who asked what was used in this crime, and she answered.
She answers with an emoji of a gun. These comments also are just within the last month. Now, it is unclear as far as the investigation is concerned whether or not law enforcement has that murder weapon and whether it's been recovered, but that's not the only comment. Look at this one.
This person commented and said, from an investigative standpoint, it would seem that it was someone who knew them, hoping for answers and swift justice. Sarah Grace, the daughter and stepdaughter of these victims who has now been arrested, said most definitely was, since they knew the house.
That was on June 9th. And allegedly, reportedly, wasn't the only account that Sarah Grace contacted. This is from the account Jade Talks Crime.
TikToker Sarah Grace Patrick, age 17, reached out to me to tell me that she wanted me to research the case.
She also apparently spoke with this creator on the phone as recently as last month.
So Sarah reached out to me on Sunday, and we spoke on the phone, and we spoke via text. And she asked me to speak on her behalf about the night of 2/20/25.
Here's what Sarah Grace allegedly told TikToker Kelly Brown.
Sarah has confirmed that she was awake the night of the incident and heard nothing out of the normal. Those are her words, nothing out of the normal. But she did hear James's LVAD machine, which is his heart machine that kept his heart pumping. She did hear that alarm going off throughout the night. So those are the two things that she wanted me to share with you guys.
According to the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, James had survived major heart surgery and he may have been in need of a heart transplant, but he was a fighter, and a tragic part of this story is that his life was cut short this way. Not only did Sarah Grace post on TikTok about her parents like this one on Mother's Day, she also would post images as if she was continuing to live her life. It was just a week ago. She posted this from what appears to be a trip to the beach for the 4th of July. Deputies say even though Sarah Grace was 16 at the time she killed her mom and stepdad, she's now 17 years old. She is facing charges as an adult. She is facing 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of assault. Another part of this story that we're watching is deputies say that more arrests are possible in this case. Joining us now to talk more about this case is one of the creators on TikTok who Sarah Grace Patrick, it appears, reached out to cover the case she's now accused of, charged with the murder of her mom and stepdad, the creator behind Allegedly, Reportedly. I know in the TikTok true crime world, when it comes to first names and things like that, keeping information is very important. So we'll honor that.
Thank you.
But thank you for joining me. In leading into this interview, we talked a little bit about some of the posts that you had and the comments that Sarah Grace left on your content. I'll just start right out of the gate. I mean, what was your reaction when you saw that she was actually charged with the murders?
Just absolute shock. Trying to sort through any time a teenager is arrested and charged with taking their parents' lives, that is shocking. But to double it, this is a teenager who asked me to cover this case, who emailed me her version of events of what happened that night, who replied to comments in ways that are now very chilling to look back on, but I didn't realize it. So the day the arrest happened, I was in a state of shock for hours. Shock.
Let's go back to when she first reached out to you. When was that?
That was on June 3rd. So that was the first time I had even heard of the James and Kristen Brock case. Her first message only said, look into the Brock case. And the only Brock I had readily available in my brain was Brock Turner. So I asked if that's what she meant, and it was not. She said, my parents, James and Kristen Brock. And I had a post up 2 days later for her, and she thanked me for it, started replying to comments.
And there was a couple comments that I know you've posted in the last 24 hours that,
Yes.
chilling is kind of a word. It can be cliche in these moments, but I mean, the one with the emoji,
Yes.
walk us through through that post? And now, in hindsight, looking at it, just what your reaction is?
That is the most chilling, and like you said, that feels like a cliche word. I don't know an appropriate word outside of chilling, disturbing, haunting. Someone asked what the mode of this crime was, what weapon was used. Sarah Grace Patrick responded with an emoji of a gun. In the moment, when she first left that on June 6th or 7th, I knew that, of course, she knew what was used, but now with this charge, that is very strange to look back on.
And then the other one that may, I mean, to even top that in some ways, is the question of whether or not whoever did it at the time when she's posting about this, whether they knew James and Kristen Brock
Yeah.
and what she said on your account. What to see it now with her saying like, well, it must have been, I'm paraphrasing, must have been someone that knew them.
Yes.
I mean, even that is, you just are realizing you're looking at the words of someone who's accused of murder is just it's haunting.
Yes, and she went further to say not only was it someone that knew the victims, she said it was someone that knew the house.
Right.
I mean, just and I keep saying how disturbing all of these were. I have provided them to law enforcement. As soon as I heard about this arrest, I knew that needs to be my first call. It felt like a very strange call to make to say, "Hello, I do TikTok. You may want this stuff," but I'm glad that I did.
When she emailed you her version of events,
Yes.
what stood out to you? I mean, what was the narrative that she was telling about what happened?
So I won't be too detailed on that, and I apologize. I just want to make sure everything I've provided to the police, I don't speak too detailed about. But I will say, when I received that, I read it to my husband, me still thinking this is a teenager that is heartbroken. She wants coverage. I read it to my husband, and he said, she did it. And I said, "What do you mean? How could you say that? That is, you're so heartless. How could you say that?" So when the arrest was made, I had to tell him for the millionth time in our marriage, "You were right, honey. You were spot on." Looking back, there are things that I guess should have been red flags for me. The way she was describing it, some of the descriptive words that she used. Um, but again, in the moment, I just couldn't help but view her as the daughter of these victims and someone who was asking for coverage. So, why would I believe she did it? Why would someone who did this want us to talk about it? But look, like I said, looking back at that email, those comments, even her original messages where she hinted at, hey, you should really do this video because it will get a lot of views. I should have immediately known that is not right. Um, but hindsight,
Did she say something about like views
yes.
on like in those comments? She did. What did she say about that?
Well, that was in her messages to me when she was first asking me to do the video. She said it will get a lot of hits. I just Googled it, and the only person who has covered it so far comes up right at the top. So I told myself maybe that's a teenager thing in 2025. My teenage years are pretty far behind me, so maybe they always think of views even when they're distraught. Um, but again, it was one of those things that I should have read and said, whoa, uh, this is suspicious. But naivety.
Everything's like, yeah, I mean, everything's like hindsight
Yes.
2020 because, people who will pitch us stories and, you're trying to sell it to someone who has a platform. And like I could see without knowing what we know now that it's just kind of a teenager thing. One comment I saw from someone on social media that was kind of a red flag was the story about her 5-year-old sister
Mm,
who
yes.
you just think of her now and you just hope that she certainly loved by her family who she's with, but the idea that this happened in a small house in a quiet place where if there's gunshots you would hear that, and that it was the
Yes.
5-year-old who finds her mom and dad, James and Kristen, and then has to alert the
Yeah.
girl in the house, alert Sarah Grace. That just to me stood out as kind of
Yes.
a suspicious, and it was someone else's comment, but
Mm.
seeing that now, it just seems like it sticks out that that would have been something for law enforcement that would have been a bit suspicious.
Absolutely. I mean, the no forced entry, I know they said that there was a door unlocked, but the no forced entry, no weapon was in the home, so they were able to pretty quickly rule out murder suicide. Um, and so where is that? That is, of course, one of the questions. But her being 16 at the time of this crime and supposedly not hearing those gunshots, and James Brock had a heart monitor. I believe it is called an IVAD. If I
Yeah.
have that wrong, correct me. But that machine, to my understanding, would have been going off very loudly once his heart was no longer beating. So not only did the 16-year-old allegedly not hear gunshots, she allegedly didn't hear this heart monitor, no forced entry. Just so many things don't make sense. Now, of course, I keep repeating and will that she's innocent until proven guilty, but a lot of things that make you scratch your head looking at it all now.
No, definitely,
Yeah.
and we haven't heard her side of it. We know that the public relations, public information person for Carroll County had said it was a mountain of evidence, but then in the
Yes.
news conference, she wouldn't go deep into specifically what it was. They did confirm to us that was her TikTok because when we saw it for the first time, I mean, I was like, I was just I don't get shocked often, but in looking at just the everything we've learned since, it was like we need confirmation that this is actually her. Did
Yes.
anything stand out to you? And I know in hindsight we can sit and say, everything stands out as a red flag, but just the fact the way she was commenting
Mhm.
on those posts, like I think of even
Yes.
using, if your parents are murdered to use an emoji, even in a reply was just
Yes.
like, that is a red flag to me now, knowing what we know.
Agreed. And then her comments, the amount, it's like she was finding every video that talked about this case and replying to so many comments. Would most people be that active on social media at a time like this? And then her post where, which her account is gone now, but her post where she would end the caption with, probably should delete later. Some of those were very strange to try to understand after this arrest. Some of her reposts that people found were also, I think, a lot of us are trying to analyze those reposts. Sometimes you can analyze things too much at a time like this, but she certainly left a digital footprint for us to all explore. And a lot of people wonder if, her messages to people like me, which I am not the only one, don't ever want to make it seem like I think I'm the only
Right.
person she contacted. But was that a way, if she winds up being the person that did this, did she want to hear about this over and over? Was it a form of duper's delight? Or did she have a guilty conscience? And this was some way that she was ridding herself of some of that guilt. I just have so many questions.
I do too. And it's, how much will we learn, as the case, but we often don't in stories like this. I feel like get a digital footprint like
Yes.
what we have for those of us on the outside from law enforcement. You have a lot of followers on TikTok, I think more than 130,000 from what we saw. What has their reaction been and what has the conversation been like on your account since this story broke?
I think the most popular comment would be, "What?" Because as soon as I heard about the arrest, I, posted that video where you can, I think, tell I'm in shock. Why would you ask me to cover this? And it just immediately took off because it is so shocking. It is so, I mean, it feels like something out of a movie or a book. So the large amount of response has just been more shock, more questions. Of course, a lot of people asking me, well, what was the evidence? What is the motive? And I just keep repeating, the police did not tell me personally what evidence they had. They told us at the press conference there is a mountain of evidence. And as far as motive, I keep comparing it to the Brian Koberger case. We've been waiting years and years to find out the why, although there is no good enough why in any of these cases. But now, years later, he is pleading guilty. We probably will never hear that motive. So, as soon as someone is arrested, that's not typically the time we find out those answers. So, there's been a lot of shock, a lot of questions, and now we just have to do a lot of hurry up and wait and see.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there was anything that a similarity for a case that feels so unique in a lot
Mhm.
of ways and sad in that way. The
Yeah.
comparison to kind of waiting for motive is a good one. Just is there anything, have you ever had something like this where someone who's a, because I mean, we both cover true crime and we cover some really scary people and scary
Mhm.
stories. Have you ever had direct communication with someone who was arrested like this before?
I have never had communication before an arrest like this. I have received communications from people that I have covered.
Yeah.
Um, I did not respond because they were quite hostile, not happy that I had covered them. Um, but the only other, and this isn't, someone contacted me on TikTok after the crime, but I actually started doing TikToks because I knew a guy as a teenager that wound up being arrested for a cold case murder in our town. And there were two missing women, last known to be with him. So I was contacting true crime creators saying, "Will you cover this? Will you cover this? We have to find these missing women." And no one ever replied. So I said, "Well, I'll just do it myself." And that was in late 2022. And I've been doing it ever since. So I've had different varieties of, I knew a guy that wound up going to prison for life for murder. Now I've had a girl in my inbox who has been arrested for 2 counts of murder. So I don't know what happened in the universe that I keep getting tied up with people that wind up being charged with this, but maybe this will be the last time, and I will just cover stories and not be involved in them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and I remember your post, I think it was the first one that showed up for me, of just like, why would you reach out to someone? And I guess that kind of speaks to motive, but
Yeah.
what was your thought of how you were going to cover this story now and what
Mhm,
your first post was going to be
mhm,
when you saw that she was the one? Because I will say, like, in watching the news conference, and I was like, who is going to be, who did they arrest for this? And then when
mhm.
they said her name, it was just this jaw dropping moment.
Yes.
And then for you to connect the dots and being like, oh my gosh, this is the person I was talking to before. I mean, what went into deciding how you were going to cover this going forward?
To be honest, I was so shocked. I don't think there was too much planning or strategizing. It was just, this is shocking. I have to talk about this. I got to get this out. Now, I did call law enforcement before making that video because that felt like the true first step I should take. But then I knew I've got to talk about this. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to process this. So I'm going to take it to TikTok. This is outrageous.
Yeah, it is. And you're just seeing this story continue to spread, and it's just like one development after another. When thinking about this digital footprint,
Yeah.
that's been left behind. We'll see how the court case plays out. The TikTok creator behind allegedly, reportedly, that is the handle on social media. Give her a follow. Great work. And thank you for joining us on Law and Crime. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Sarah Grace Patrick is being held without bond. And another part of this story that we're following and is so important to talk about is her half sister, the then 5-year-old girl who's now 6, who Sarah Grace said was in the house the night that her parents were killed. This is an Amazon wish list that James Brock's sister, who you can find on Kimberly in GA, it's a public TikTok account. She linked this Amazon list on her account, and it's all items for that now 6-year-old girl who is in the care of family members. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.